live. The Hangout on air is live. Cool. Hey guys, it's Dean from Manful Yoga, and I'm joined here by Eugene, the co-founder of KnotOut, Director of Marketing, and his last name I won't even begin to try and pronounce. But we want to talk today about mobility and just go through some basic questions about mobility that people have and talk about its benefits and how you can get started with the mobility practice. So Eugene, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. This is fun.
Yeah. So little backstory on how I started talking with Eugene. When I went to the Paleo FX conference, that's in Austin, this is where I live, last year, I found a group of people, a workshop there using this thing called a KnotOut. And I jumped in not knowing that you had to pay for any of the workshops. And I started just doing the exercises with them. And I had been using lacrosse balls before that for mobility work. So if you look at this, it's very similar to a lacrosse ball, except it's doubled up. So I jumped in, I started using it and realized, wow, this is really cool. This does a lot of stuff that just the lacrosse ball cannot do. And then after that, I met via email and over the phone with most of the KnotOut team after that. And I've been promoting KnotOut ever since because I think it's just such a fantastic product. But I wanted to talk today about mobility and I guess get Eugene to help me answer some of the main questions that people have when it comes to mobility, and also maybe just expose some what people would want mobility for, or even how the topic comes up. So Eugene, let's start off. How did you get your interest in mobility?
Okay, so I was a personal trainer for about 6 years before anything. I got my degree in kinesiology, and I'd kind of been studying, muscle, and then I went full pre-med, finished all of that before I decided I wanted to be in business instead. I was training at Equinox when I met my business partner, and he had designed these rollers where he was a little bit older than me, and his body was pretty beat up. And so what he started doing is one of his PTs gave him two lacrosse balls taped together. Now, the problem there was he had to retape, and he had to retape, and he had to retape, and the balls would keep falling apart. And so he brought me, when I was first introduced to the product, it was brought to me as, I'm an engineer and I'm lazy and I've designed all of this, but I'm not a fitness person. So before that, I'd worked with a lot of older clients during my fitness career. I've worked with people with early onset Parkinson's, people, Korean War vets that had that were amazingly strong human beings, but their bodies had just started to effectively deteriorate so quickly, where their balance on stairs, their ability to walk, their ability to move, their ability to stand straight was just going away, and they really didn't necessarily know why, and they really didn't notice it until it was called out to them, like, we can do something about this, we can counteract this. So for me, I've always worked with the clients that are so far down the journey of losing their mobility that it's harder to help them, and we're still able to produce results. Anybody who's younger, and this is where my passion is, if I can educate anybody who's much younger than those people to start some of these practices in their lives, then you're never going to get there. Something's going to take you out at some point, but it's not going to be your mobility. You're going to be able to move and function well your entire life, and I think that's a goal worth fighting for and worth pursuing.
Yeah, that's an awesome mission, and it's very similar to what any kind of fitness that isn't, lifting weights or looking really sexy doing a handstand or doing something that we want to see ourselves doing. That's the challenge, getting anybody to do something that's not that exciting exercise to get going. Because the more we do this kind of stuff, the better we actually get at all the other stuff that we want to do.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I face the same struggle with teaching people yoga. So it's cool to hear that you're in this fight with me. So I want to hear about a little bit more about mobility. And you go to, you ask me about mobility. I'll say one thing. Let's say you go to, Kelly Starrett, you go to the mobility WOD guy, and he'll tell you something else. But what do you define as mobility?
The easiest, kind of the best definition we've been able to come up with as a company to explain it is as a contrast to flexibility. As a contrast to just having a large range of motion in your joints, which can be a good thing or cannot be a good thing. Hypermobility is a thing, especially if you don't have a lot of muscular strength. We use mobility as applied flexibility. We use mobility as the ability to move your body into the positions that you need to generate force, to do what you want with your body, to have control of your muscles and of your limbs in the positions that you want them to be in, and be able to do activities, to be able, the ability to generate force in some way, in some direction, without injuring yourself. And so basically for us, it's applied flexibility.
I love that, applied flexibility. So it's functional flexibility. It's not just flexibility to be able to touch your toes or to be able to reach a certain point, but actually being able to exhibit strength within that range of motion. That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm into.
Right.
A lot of people that I see in yoga, the focus seems to be on how flexible can I get? How much can I open my joints, or how much joint space can I create in addition to muscle flexibility? But these people can't, they don't have a lot of strength within that range of motion. So I'm like, well, that's cool, but what's the point of all that flexibility if you can't use it? It looks cool. Exactly. And it looks great on an Instagram pic. But I mean, in terms of, I think that those people are, I hope I'm not offering an awful premonition, but I think that that's not setting you up to be healthy on a long-term basis.
Muscle imbalances, unless you have unless you have healthy range of motion and strength on both sides of a joint, you're going to have problems. For one, so I was a video game player for many years, semi-professionally, professionally. Played video games. Oh, all sorts of nonsense, shooters, and then strategy games and everything. Spent the most time on a game called Dota 2, and if anybody knows what that is, awesome. Warcraft was good. That's where Dota started. But what happens is all that sitting shrunk my hamstrings, right? So on the other side of it, the thing is, I have these shortened hamstrings. So touching my toes right now is going to take me another 5 years before I can really reach down and grab my toes. But on the other side, I have hypermobile quads. I can, like getting my heel to my glute, getting my heel past my glute, no problem, really easy, right? And that, if I just show people that, they think it's an amazing thing. While on the other side, it puts a lot of strain on my knee when I do almost anything, because on the other side I have the hamstring yanking it, and it's made my joint less stable. So a lot of this just hyper stretching, and then women are a little bit more susceptible to it because estrogen does amazing things to the joint. It's just kind of the way the biology works. But it doesn't necessarily add to the body's ability to perform. Now, a healthy yoga practice, you build a lot of strength, right? Like all of the static poses. I've done a little bit of it. It's a great workout.
Yeah.
But you have to combat mobility issues from both sides. So yes, if for the hyper flexible people that you're dealing with and you're discussing, that's not great too. But they're more likely, as long as they're doing a healthy yoga practice, they're more likely to be on the side of looser and stronger and fitter in general. But if you have people on the first side, those people are tight somewhere. They have muscles where your full range of motion, maybe this, well, they're only strong here, and then here they're not able to generate strength because that part of the muscle is either knotted up or not able to be accessed neurologically, and that can cause a lot of problems. And when I say problems, basically, when I say it can cause a lot of problems, I mean it makes it more likely for an injury to occur. Because that's all I want to avoid, is I want to avoid people from having pain and injury, ever. Right? That's your goal too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we talk about. I mean, it's decreased injury, decreased risk of injury, also decreased joint pain from less tension from the muscles pulling on the joints.
Yeah.
And so you talked about that knot before. So I'm glad you kind of created a visual using your hands. But what can you do about that knot? So if I want to get that knot out, forgive the pun, but if I want to get that knot out, can stretching yeah, right, knot out. But if I want to get that knot out, can stretching alone get that knot out, or how effective is stretching?
So I'm gonna grab something and demonstrate this a little bit of a better way.
Awesome. Now the camera's stuck on me.
Yeah, that's all right.
Put it on my pen.
All right. All right. Piece of rope. All right. We're going to pretend this piece of rope's our muscle tissue. And all we're going to do is, in that piece of rope, we're going to tie a knot. And we're going to pretend that's just that knot in the muscle. Right? So everyone sees it, knot. So what happens if we just stretch and pull on that muscle for forever? Did it not move?
Right.
The knot can't move. So you can stretch. I mean, muscle can stretch indefinitely, but what the knot actually is the brain oftentimes having to like passively recruit muscle tissue, and it's because oftentimes, as far as my understanding and what I kind of believe is it's the body's self-defense mechanism. Right? So can you imagine sitting at a keyboard all day, and what happens when you have your shoulders roll forward and you're at a keyboard all day? Well, if this was your life, and this was your life, 18 hours a day, if the body didn't do anything about it, at some point you're driving, you're texting, you're doing all these things, and at some point, if your body didn't do something about it, your shoulders would just touch in front. Now, anatomically, that can't happen, but that's the direction we're headed. So the body does these things. It just sticks knots in the upper back, and then, okay, now I can't like now I'm tightened up right here, and it doesn't feel comfortable. But guess what? It does limit the amount of forward rolling that my shoulders do passively, right? And that's kind of, as far as my beliefs and what I've read, there's no one can explain why knots occur. Like injuries will cause some knots, etc. But that's my best understanding of why the body physiologically would do something this, why such a mechanism would exist. And it's neurologically signaling to muscles, and it's not conscious, right? So the brain is signaling to that muscle, hey, you stay tight over there. You stay tight over there. You just stay, you're protecting us. You just keep doing that for forever. And that's not healthy. It develops a lot of toxins, and it stays in the muscle. So the only way to really release it is to break this muscle down, is to get it to soften. And one of the ways we do that is through part of our muscle called the Golgi tendon organ. Right? Are you familiar with the GTO?
You told me about this last time we talked. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the GTO is basically the part of the muscle, a little organ in our muscles that prevents our muscles from tearing when too much pressure is put on the muscle. So if you tried to stop a moving vehicle with your arms and just try to stay there, at some point your arms would just let go. It wouldn't be your fault. It would just be the GTOs would activate and force your muscles to relax, because it's basically deciding, hey, it's either going to be my arm, or I just let go of whatever I'm holding. And the body obviously is self-preservation, so it's the arm. So what we do instead is we trick that same part of the muscles to activate in order to start releasing some of this tension. And what we do is we apply a roller to it for 30 seconds to 60 seconds. And with enough pressure, it's not going to feel comfortable. It shouldn't feel massively painful, but with enough pressure that you start releasing the knot. So back to your example, if you stretch constantly, you'll stretch the muscle. You'll be able to elongated, right? But the reality is most likely that's not going to have as effective of a release on the knot as applying direct pressure to that knot and helping it release. Now, this is probably more information than anybody wants to hear, but that's a pretty good example.
No,
right?
no, I'm glad we're getting into the more specifics of it, because I can talk about the knot and pushing pressure on the knot. But as far as getting into the more technical aspects, that's not something that I would feel comfortable talking about.
Sure.
So I'm glad that you're doing that. So you said 30 to 60 seconds.
Right. It's even for people that are more ambitious. It's closer to 30 seconds to a minute and a half. And I think NASM put out some research that it's really based on how painful it is. So you have you have a pain scale, and let's do it as a 1 to 5 scale. You have a pain scale, and if you're at that 4 level, like, you should never be at the 5. If you're ever experiencing so much pain that it's shooting and completely unbearable, and you're shedding tears, you probably should get a softer roller or not do that. But let's say you're closer to that 4 marker. Well, then you want to only spend about 30 seconds on that point. And we're not talking about 30 seconds on muscle. We're talking about 30 seconds on a point on a muscle, because the reality is you can have more than one trigger point on a muscle. You can have more than one knot in a muscle. It's actually very common, especially on large muscles like our lats or traps. You're going to have more than one point. And then if the pain's a little bit more bearable, you're closer to that minute and a half marker, where you want to stay there and apply gentle pressure to that area and start to let it release. Now, you do it one day and then don't do it for a week and don't change your lifestyle, you're not doing anything. But you do it consistently 3 times a week, find time in the evenings to do these things, it'll start to build up and have an additive effect, and you'll start feeling better and it'll start to release.
Okay, so that gives me 2 questions. If you hold it for longer than 90 seconds, let's say that I spend 10 minutes on one spot, can I do damage to that muscle?
So with our company, we actually have to be a little careful with this. Our harder rollers are black rollers, because we have 2 densities. We have the firm and the soft. Firm. So those are fairly hard. Those are much harder than your traditional black foam roller, which you can find in most facilities.
A lot harder.
A lot harder. And so you actually have to be careful, because you're putting, let's say you're lying on your back, right, on one of our larger rollers, and your spine's in here, and you're in your lower back muscle. A lot of your body weight is on the roller, right? So you're putting, for some of us, up to 200 pounds on a roller split across 2 points, right? And you put that on there for about 10 minutes. What you can actually do, especially if it's days on days on days, or you decide, hey, I'm going to roll for an entire weekend, you can bruise your muscle tissue. So there's definitely a point of diminishing returns. And most of the pain and discomfort in the body is inflammation. Just like 90% of it, unless it's a broken bone or something else. Almost everything is some form of inflammation. Well, bruised tissue is inflamed. And so so are your uncomfortable knots. They're inflamed. But we put pressure on it to start to release. But at some point, if you overdo it, you're just going to inflame your tissue again, bruise it, and set yourself back, because bruised muscle doesn't have good range of motion. So there's no reason you can't roll your muscles every day. The research shows no downside to foam rolling every day, but there has to be a sense of moderation.
Okay.
And watch how dense your tool is. Watch what your body is telling you. If you're starting to experience a lot of pain, if your muscles are getting swollen, here's a good example. So let's say the way most people work out is they break apart their body into sections. And today's a leg day. Today's an upper body day. Today's a forearms and neck day. I don't know, but this is the way they do it. There's a very good reason for not working out the same muscle 2 days in a row. Recovery, the need to for that muscle to, when you work out hard, the muscle tears apart. and then over the next day or two, it comes back together a little bigger, and then you can work it out again, and that's how strength happens.
Mm-hmm.
So for foam rolling, it's safe to foam roll every day, but if you're going to completely mobilize one part of your body and spend half an hour rolling on just your glutes and your hamstrings and your maybe the next day you don't go as hard on that same part of the body because you are doing damage. You are some of the same stuff you're doing in working out is part of your mobility. Mobility is work. Mobility is like we view mobility as just another workout. So you do yoga for an hour, you do weightlifting for an hour, you go run for an hour. Well, mobility is a workout you throw into your routine that has a positive impact if done regularly, just like everything else you do, and it's just as valuable.
Yeah, cool. So my next question then is, thank you. That was a fantastic answer. So my
I'll
next
get a
question,
few of those in.
Okay, perfect.
I'll get a few good ones in.
Good. So my next question then is so you mentioned this, but just doing it once per week and not doing anything else with it probably won't have a huge effect on your body. But what's the best way for me to incorporate mobility work into my workout routine? Should I do it in conjunction with a strength training workout? Should I do it at the end of my workout? Should I do it at the beginning of my workout? Are there multiple answers to this question? Yes.
Yes.
Give me a few answers.
No, everything you said was completely right. The way we do it is warm up mobility work, cool down recovery mobility work, and then focused mobility work. That's how we break it up in our company and our education. Warm up mobility work is, here's what my workout is going to be today. So I'm going to work out, let's say I told you about my tight hamstrings. So let's say I'm doing deadlifts today. Well, I'm going to mobilize my hamstrings and my glutes because I know and my low back, because I know for a fact those are my tight muscles, and and if they stay really tight, they're going to prevent me from going through the full range of motion and doing exactly what I need to do to perform the deadlift successfully. So in my warm up, on top of warming up, getting my heart rate up, getting all these things, I'm gonna roll out some of my posterior chain, so I know that the work I'm doing that day is gonna work with me and it's gonna be productive. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Then so for your warm up, so you could do this in about you could do this isn't a half an hour. This is 5 minutes. Here's what I'm working out today. Here are my mobility problems. I'm gonna target my work just to make my exercises safer and more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Cool down. I just wrecked my quads. Wrecked them. I did went heavy squats. I went all in and tried to push for a new RM on my squats. Well, now I have all this lactic acid and muscle damage on my quads, and in my cool down, I want to prevent some of that inflammation, prevent some of that soreness, help myself recover quickly so I can use my quads again in 2 to 3 days. So now the muscles that got completely thrashed are what I'm going to be rolling out, probably with a softer roller, in order to reduce soreness. And that's the one thing that the research has shown pretty time and time again, is that rolling helps reduce soreness.
Mm-hmm. Helps
reduce all that post-exercise soreness. And so with the assumption is it clears it and helps the muscles recover faster, because pain and inflammation, the soreness is pain and inflammation. If that's going away faster, well, it's a safe assumption to think that the rolling's helping the muscles recover faster.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the last one, and so we had something before your exercise and after your exercise. Now these are all based on what the exercise is. The focus mobility is something I like to do in the evenings before bed, and it basically is the lifestyle mobility. Like the thing, I sit at a desk all day, so okay, in the evenings I need to roll out my upper back. I need to roll out my pecs because they're tight. This is the stuff where my lifestyle is causing me this accumulated damage, and now I need to incorporate something in my day-to-day life 3 times a week, at my leisure, at my free, when I have to, in front of a computer, in front of a TV. It doesn't really matter, but you have to incorporate it something to counteract the damage that your lifestyle is doing. Otherwise, you end up like one of these old men where 40 years at a desk and all of a sudden your back won't go back to normal. It can't, right? You haven't, like, it's the cumulative effect. You don't have enough lifetime maybe, or you don't have, or the muscles and bones have calcified so much, or the body's reduced your resources so much that you're never going to restore to a normal, healthy back. And that's what we want to avoid. So you have to counteract the damage that our lifestyle is doing as the damage is happening. Or better yet, change your lifestyle a little bit in order to, reduce that damage. That's an even better thing to do. Is not only do the rolling, but also, hey, maybe a standing desk, maybe something else in order to reduce some of this damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my standing desk, I am standing. I love this thing. I was doing some lunging while you were talking before, just to keep my hip flexors nice and supple. But so I personally, I've also noticed some other things outside of when I do specific work on my body at night, or even when I do it during the day. I also I can feel this sense of kind of winding down, or even getting into the point where I start to feel a little bit cloudy, just because I feel more relaxed, or I feel less just more tired. So is that something is that consistent with other people's findings in terms of what they're experiencing with mobility work?
Well, it's meditative. You're supposed to be breathing while you're doing mobility work anyway. So it doesn't surprise me that, staying there and centering yourself and focusing on one part of your body, you can have those sorts of effects. The other thing is people have different responses to pain, and mobility work shouldn't, while it shouldn't be painful, it's certainly not comfortable. It certainly isn't, it isn't the easiest thing for your body to go through. And for some people that can put them in that state where I'm dealing with, some people are very distracted with pain, some people have low pain tolerance, and even background pain can drain your energy a little bit. And the other thing you have to do is stay hydrated while you do mobility work, because you are flushing your body with the stuff that's in the muscles, that you're breaking apart muscles, you're breaking apart knots, and it takes extra fluid in the muscles to clear it. Plus your myofascial tissue, which we hadn't discussed yet, but it's the connecting tissues that surrounds all of our bodies, like saran wrap, all of our muscles. It also functions better when it's well hydrated. So it has reduced function when you're dehydrated. It's another reason to drink a lot of water, people. Good stuff.
Yeah, I also noticed, and you probably get if you ever gone to a massage, right? You get out and they'll tell you, make sure you drink some water after this, and if you don't, you feel sore the next day. So it's kind of the same thing with doing mobility work. You need to make sure that you're rehydrating afterwards, or you'll feel sore. Cool. So that's really useful too. I'm trying to think what else I would like to discuss other than the obvious few things we have left to discuss. Let's go with this. What are some questions that you get on, let's go with the most commonly asked question for you in terms of when people send you emails asking what can mobility do for them, or something like that.
The most common question we actually get is desk work, forearms, bottoms of the feet. We have other rollers that are good for. Here's a good way to answer this. We have different rollers as a company, right? We have different size rollers. Here's two of them, but we have smaller ones, bigger ones, little guys for your hands, your feet, your forearms. And we're often asked what roller is right for me. We're often asked what density is right for me. And a lot for us as a company, because of our product line, these are our most commonly asked questions. And the simplest thing to answer is, if it works for your part of that part of the body, if you can comfortably put the roller on the muscle where you need the pressure, then it's probably the right roller for you. Now, as far as the density is concerned, if you can't breathe comfortably on the roller, even though it's a little uncomfortable, but if you can't breathe and maintain a position without wincing, the roller's probably too hard for you. You need something where you can actually relax and breathe into that muscles, because that 30 to 90-second window isn't changing just because you're massively uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need the hardest roller in order to receive benefit from mobility. Now I know me and Dean probably like the harder rollers, and that's absolutely true. But there's definitely an appropriate balance for different people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of questions about that, and then probably the second most important question we get asked a lot is it safe to roll your low back?
Mm.
Right, with a roller. Is it safe to put a roller in your lower back? Now, for this, the answer is maybe.
Mm.
And for us, as our company, it's almost always yes, because our rollers are designed to not put any pressure on the spine, right?
Right.
And the only reason you don't want to roll your low back is because you're putting excess pressure on the spine, which, while most of the time will not cause any harm, but it's something you want to avoid whenever possible.
Yeah, that's why using a little crossball is so difficult, because it moves around when you're trying to roll, and then it inevitably slips and goes right in the middle of your back. And you're like, oh no,
right, and that doesn't feel great at all.
No, it feels horrible.
And then there's one more note about the low back, though, because this is important. Our low back has a natural arch to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other reason people worry about their low back is because if you stick a roller in there and then just flatten out your legs and flatten out your upper body and just let gravity do all the work, well, now all of a sudden you've hyperextended your low. You've that natural curve in your back. You've just stuck a roller in it and crunched some vertebrae together, regardless of if the roller is shaped for your back or not, like ours are. So the important thing is you want to maintain a core stability while you're rolling your low back. So I almost always tell people to maintain their elbows on the floor, keep your feet on the floor. You can roll into the muscles without forcing your spine into an unnatural curvature,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you do those things, then yeah, you can roll out your low back completely safely, and you're fine, unless you have a herniated disc or some other contraindication. Make sure your doctor tells you it's okay to roll before you roll.
Right. Legal stuff.
Yeah. I'm protecting you and me here, Dean. It's important.
Yeah. That's true. I work with a lot of people who have had back surgery or who've been threatened with back surgery. And you always have to be careful with those people. But I wanted to talk about the medium KnotOut. Oh yeah. So in terms of back bending, though, it's the same with. It's the same with any exercise. You're going to find yourself in a position where your back is bent. And when that happens, you just need to make sure that you are properly using your core to protect your back and keep space between the vertebrae. So it's the same in yoga. If I'm doing a back bend, for example, I'm not going to just put my butt out like this and lean back. I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping my core engaged as I lean back, so that I'm keeping strength as I'm leaning back and protecting my spine. So, hopefully people do recognize that. And whenever I'm teaching something with a KnotOut, I always make sure that you're tightening your core, and even thinking of pushing your lower back down while tightening your core to increase that pressure. Whenever we get the KnotOut, by the way, whenever I use the KnotOut with people that I'm working with, the first time we get this thing on their back is like, just the responses are fantastic, or hearing about how effective it is, or hearing like, wow, I wish I had this 5 years ago, is just, it's amazing to see. And that's how I felt too. My back was so tight.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, you guys have a really awesome tool. All right. Well, what else did you want? Was there anything else that you think people should know about mobility? Or hold on, let's talk a little bit, because I talk about this a lot. What's the difference between foam rolling and knotting out? What can I accomplish with a KnotOut or a lacrosse ball even, or whatever other mobility tool there is? that I can't accomplish with a foam roller?
All right, so a foam roller is the shape of a cylinder, right? It's a cylindrical tube of foam. I think I have one in here.
I've got some around here. I've got my PVC pipe because the foam roller is just never enough for me, and then the foam roller.
Right. So foam rollers are cylindrical shaped. Our bodies are not. And it really starts boiling down to something that simple, where with a ball, with anything that's shaped like a ball, here's a ball, and here's our foam roller. Anything this shape, you have the ability to put it directly on a muscle, one point of contact, get in deeper onto that piece of tissue. And that's what's important is a foam roller. When you spread your body weight over a foam roller, you have 1,000 different points of contact. If you try to get into your hip flexor right here, well, with a foam roller, I have to use the edge of the roller, and I'm not in a comfortable position at all. With a KnotOut, I'm right here. I can get, let me back up. I can get my hip flexors. I can get my TFL. I can go in and use the ball to get into my psoas. For the shape of the lat, with the lat, I can stick the roller here, lean back. I'm in my teres minor, right? Where with a natural roller, all I can do is mash down the muscles. I can mash down an entire muscle group, and mind you, this is a lot better than doing nothing at all. If all you have available at home is a foam roller, use it. But anything that's the shape of a ball, where you can aim that point of contact, well, then you're getting deeper into the muscle. Then you can find those knots, and you can find those trigger points, and it's going to be more effective. And then the advantage of this over a single ball is it's a much more stable surface. It's not going to come flying out at you. It's not going to move on you quite as much, and also because of the shape, you can cradle muscle groups as well. So I can put direct pressure on something, or I can cradle something where I don't necessarily want direct pressure. Like on the IT band, I can put the IT band in the groove of our larger roller, and then just hit the quad and the hamstring, just around it, and then change my angles. And if you use angles, now you have access to almost all of your body. And it really frees you up to just find the spots that are, instead of just generic mobility exercise that you find, it helps you find the spots that are tight on your body, on your anatomy. Nobody's mobility issues are the same, because our lifestyles aren't exactly the same. The way we sit aren't exactly the same. Our hips aren't structured exactly the same way. And that's all it is.
Nobody's body is the same. So just to recap what you just said. So number one, foam rolling versus using a KnotOut.
Sure.
The foam roller is general. It is cylindrical in shape, and because of that, you cannot hit specific. You cannot hit, number one, you can't reach certain muscles, and number two, you can't apply enough pressure on the muscle to achieve the mobility benefits that we've been discussing. So getting to the point where you can find that release. And then another point that I wanted to make is the stability aspect of having something together instead of being apart. When you use a lacrosse ball, you sit down on top of a lacrosse ball, when you use a lacrosse ball on your back, which, by the way, I would never recommend using a lacrosse ball anywhere near your spine. But if you're using a lacrosse ball, even let's say you're using it on your shoulder, you're messing around with your rotator cuff or trying to hit, the teres minor, as you talked about before, that ball is going to move all over the place. It is very difficult to keep it in place. And not only is that ineffective, it's also painful. When you hit a muscle that you can't quite stay on and it slides over, it hurts. It doesn't feel good, and there's no benefit to it when you fall over it like that. So, I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other point is, a lot of people would have a very hard time maintaining their balance sitting on a single ball. Like, remember a lot of my clientele, especially my older clientele, we even have the 4-ball rollers that are twice as long as this, just so they're less likely to flip around on them, and allow them to have an easier time to maintain balance on the roller. Right? One of the last thing you want is for an older client to be sitting on a roller, and all of a sudden the rollers slip out from under them, they hit the ground in a way they weren't predicting. Now you've shaken their confidence, and they are turned off on foam rolling, despite it probably being the best thing in the world for them to do.
Yeah.
There's the other benefit of a little bit more stability. Is it makes doing this stuff super accessible because you're in pretty good shape and you can maintain pressure on a single ball and most of the time just with body awareness and core stability, you can keep yourself there. But for most people, that's not the case.
Got it. All right, so I just retreated into my closet to get this thing. So, all right, Eugene, that was extremely informational. Thank you so much for taking the time with me to talk about mobility. And I also wanted to mention, so I've been working with KnotOut now with Eugene and with Tom. Tom is the founder, another co-founder.
Well, he's the inventor.
Oh, he is the inventor. Excuse me.
Yeah, Tom invented all this stuff.
The architect, the engineer. I've been working with these guys for I guess it's been about a year. It's been about a year now, and I started using maybe even longer than a year. I think it's been a year and a half actually. I don't know. Let's just say a year and a half. But so I've been using the KnotOut and using these with people that I work with since I've had enough time to try it out myself. And we put these. I created a program using the KnotOuts with my 90-day program. So we integrated yoga with bodyweight exercise with KnotOuts to increase flexibility, to increase your potential strength, to help with all the things that we've discussed, helping with balance, helping with muscle activation, helping with releasing trapped muscles. And I was kind of surprised to see that everybody had the same results that I did, that we had hugely increased flexibility, that we had more muscle awareness, that there was less pain, that all these things great things were happening. So that's when I decided, okay, I have to make this into a program. So using KnotOuts, using foam rollers, using lacrosse balls, using all these things together, I've created the Mobility Project. And this is a 7 workout series program that helps you work into pretty much every muscle in your body. We go from the back of your head, your traps, all the way up in the back of your head, all the way down to the bottoms of your feet. We do forearms, we do arms, we do chest, we do back, we do shoulders, we do lower back, we do even hip flexors in the front, we do core, all of your hips, your quads, your thighs, your hamstrings, your knees, your calves, and even your ankles. And it's a program to show you everything that mobility can do for your whole body. So in cooperation with the launch of this program, Eugene and KnotOut has agreed to give away 2 sets of KnotOuts. So we've got the large KnotOut here. You guys are going to do the double ones, right?
Yeah, we're going to give these 2 away.
Okay, cool. So the double one and then also the medium one. So yeah, we've got that. So you guys have seen that. So we'll be giving those away to, number one, we'll be giving the first set away to somebody within the Manful Yoga community. So if you are in the community, if you are part of the members area, you'll have a chance to receive the second giveaway is going to be done for those people who are on the VIP early access list for the Mobility Project. So not a lot of time here. I'm going to put this out today, but we don't have a lot of time here. That is on April 15th at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. So if you're seeing this a week later, it's already gone, but they probably won't be running out of KnotOuts anytime soon. So you can still get your KnotOuts and still get the Mobility Project. If you're seeing this and it's April 13th or it's April 14th or maybe even early April 15th, I'll put a link in here. It's just manflowyoga.com/mobility-project-VIP, and you'll be able to sign up for get on that list, and then we'll select a random winner to present the mobility project to, in addition to the 2 KnotOut mobility tools to help you get started on your road to mobility. So I just wanted to mention that. And thank you so much, Eugene, for being on well, this isn't a podcast. I guess this is a Google Hangout. Maybe it should be a podcast. I'd love to make it a podcast, but that's another project, maybe for another day. Any closing comments, Eugene?
Mobility work is important and effective if you do it every day. So you just, treat it like brushing your teeth. And what happens if you don't brush your teeth? Really bad things. Science has shown us you don't brush your teeth, bad things happen. Same thing. Mobility work every day. Science has shown us if you don't do mobility work for 40, 50 years, your body doesn't quite work right. Do it daily. It's not comfortable. It's not maybe the most fun thing in the world, but the value is starting to be so apparent that you can't really ignore it anymore. So,
what is the minimum amount of time that I should be doing mobility work daily to receive some quantifiable benefit?
Break your body up into parts and then spend 10 minutes a day on a part of your body that needs mobility work. If you don't have time to foam roll for an entire hour, that's fine. Split it up into a section, give it 10, 15 minutes. Do something. That's it. Just do something. Roll.
All right.
Yeah, that's it. Well, Dean, so thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for being on. It was a super short notice, but I'm glad it worked out. And so for everyone who's watching this, make sure you do your mobility work. And the mobility project goes live April 15th to the early access VIP list. And then it will be given out, made fully available on, let me check my calendar, Wednesday. So 8 weeks from now on April 20th. So
awesome.
Cool.
I look forward to seeing what you've done with it. I'm excited.
Yeah. Thank you for your support. All right, guys. Thank you for watching, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Sign up for that VIP access list, and even if it's past April 15th, check out the website. You can sign up for a 10-day introductory program to Manful Yoga, or even try out the Manful Yoga community with a 7-day free trial. All those links will be in the description below. All right, taking off. Bye, guys.